Tonight, we uncover a story buried beneath centuries of faith, a rivalry older than any religion, and a secret that may change everything we think we know about divine power. They say the walls of Rome hold every secret, but some are buried far deeper. You walk beneath the marble brilliance of St. Peter's Basilica, your footsteps muffled by centuries of dust and devotion, and you can almost feel the pulse of the earth below your shoes. The Vatican above is silent, lit by golden chandeliers and murmured prayers. But here in the crypt, the air grows heavier with every step you take. You pass frescoes that seem to breathe with candlelight, and you catch the faint scent of incense mixed with something older, stone that remembers pagan fires. You pause before a grated passage marked non transire, do not enter, and naturally, you do the opposite. A guard once told you, half joking, half terrified, that beneath the basilica, there's a chamber where even the popes won't tread after sunset. You laugh softly, because of course you would end up here. You probably won't survive this. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Let me know in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is right now in your corner of the world. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together as the echo of your breathing joins the whispers of Rome's oldest stones. The corridor narrows, forcing you to tilt your head. You trail your hand along the damp wall and feel a faint vibration beneath the plaster, as though someone below is still stirring. According to archaeologists, the earliest catacombs here date back to the 2nd century, long before Christianity had marble altars, yet no map has ever shown the lower tunnels you're about to enter. The silence presses closer. Your flashlight flickers once, and for a heartbeat, you hear something that sounds almost like a sigh from beneath the floor. The tunnel breathes with its own rhythm now, a slow exhalation of ancient air that smells of limestone and candle soot. You duck beneath a low archway, brushing past a frayed electrical wire that hums faintly as if alive, and the narrow path opens into a half-lit corridor lined with locked iron gates. Most are sealed with wax, some marked by the Vatican's crest, others by nameless sigils eroded beyond recognition. Your flashlight's beam dances across Latin inscriptions warning of anathema, excommunication, divine punishment, basically the medieval version of keep out. You pause at one gate unlike the rest, a squat, rusted door half buried in plaster, its bars fused together by centuries of neglect. On its center, a large keyhole glints beneath layers of wax stamped with an emblem, 2 crossed keys inside a circle of thorns. The fringe historians online love this symbol, claiming it belonged to Pope Sylvester II, the so-called sorcerer pope, rumored to have studied dark arts in Cordoba around the year 1000. Mainstream scholars roll their eyes, insisting it's merely a stylized papal crest from a later period. But even the Vatican archives stay vague on which one. You lean closer and catch the faint scent of myrrh and iron, and as your fingers trace the wax seal, you feel warmth, real warmth, as if the metal beneath were alive. A whisper echoes behind you, too soft to make out, yet familiar in cadence, like the rhythm of a prayer reversed. You glance back. Nothing. The corridor stands empty except for the slow drip of water and the halo of your trembling light. One quirky legend claims that every locked gate beneath St. Peter's leads not to another chamber, but to a different century altogether, sealed by popes who feared what history might release. You laugh quietly, because of course it's nonsense. Still, you find yourself knocking, 3 soft taps, on the ancient iron. Something knocks back, just once, and from somewhere deep behind the plaster, a faint metallic click answers like a key turning itself. The door doesn't swing open, it exhales. A faint gust of cool air brushes your face, carrying the scent of dust, myrrh, and something faintly metallic, like old coins. You shine your light into the narrow passage, and there he stands, an elderly custodian in a worn brown coat, holding an oil lamp that trembles in rhythm with his breathing. "You shouldn't be here," he murmurs. though his eyes seem almost relieved to see you. His voice echoes through the low stone hall like the murmur of the Tiber beneath bridges. You follow as he turns, his lamp revealing uneven walls, Roman bricks woven with early Christian mortar. "They built this basilica on the bones of its enemy," he says, tapping a chisel against the wall. "Below the altar of Peter lie the temples of Mithras." You've heard that theory before. Mainstream archaeology confirms a Mithraic shrine was discovered near the necropolis, though the Vatican prefers to call it a pagan memorial site. He chuckles, a dry, papery sound. Memorial, shrine. Who can tell the difference once the gods are quiet? You smile because that's exactly the kind of quote your viewers would love to debate in the comments. The man's lamp flickers, and for a second you swear the walls seem to shift. The bricks ripple, revealing faint outlines of bulls, torches, and figures in strange half-sun poses. "Rome didn't erase the old faith," he says softly. "It dressed it in marble robes and called it new." He points toward the darkness ahead, where the floor dips and the air thickens with moisture. Somewhere down there, you hear water trickling, slow and deliberate, like the breath of an underground river. The custodian leans close. "Everything down there remembers," he whispers, "even the stones. Especially the stones." Then he blows out his lamp and disappears into the dark. You're left with your flickering flashlight and the sense that history itself just turned its head to look at you. You step forward into air that feels centuries old, a damp chill curling around your skin like memory itself, and the sound of your boots against the stone floor is swallowed by the vastness ahead. Your light catches on bone-white walls carved with Latin inscriptions, hundreds of names in fading script, some of saints, others of emperors, and some that belong to neither heaven nor empire. The custodian's words echo. Everything down there remembers. It seems true. Every breath here tastes like time. You move deeper into what the archivists once nicknamed the Catacomb of Keys, a hidden extension beneath the basilica discovered accidentally during a maintenance survey in 1951, then promptly sealed off again with official silence. The mainstream Vatican explanation, structural instability, the fringe explanation, something they didn't want rediscovered. You can feel the temperature drop as the walls widen into a circular chamber lined with burial alcoves, each one sealed with slabs of travertine stone. Some are marked with the familiar Chi-Rho symbol, others with crude Mithraic bulls, and one simply bears an image of two keys crossing over a sunburst. When you press your ear to that one, a low vibration hums through the rock, steady and alive. It could be running water, or something else, something resonant, like an organ pipe beneath the earth. Archaeologists still debate whether the early Christians reused pagan tombs or built entirely new catacombs. The official position says the latter, but one quirky fragment found in the 1930s, a graffiti inscription reading Petros Mithras Invictus, suggests otherwise. You can almost picture the scene. Worshippers layering prayers atop each other. Old gods and new trading secrets in whispers. Your flashlight beam falls on a narrow niche near the back of the chamber where the mortar looks strangely fresh, almost recent. You kneel, scraping away flakes of plaster, and find a small bronze object wedged inside, a key, twisted and blackened but unmistakably ornate, engraved with the same circle of thorns emblem you saw earlier. As you turn it in your palm, warmth blooms again, faint but undeniable. For a moment, you think you hear chanting, a rhythm of syllables in no language you know. Maybe it's just the hum of the air vents. Maybe it's not. You mutter to yourself, if this is clickbait, it's really committing. Then, at the far end of the room, something creaks. You swing your light and catch a glimpse of an open passage that wasn't there a minute ago, yawning wide like a mouth. You hesitate, because this is the part of every Vatican mystery where someone goes missing and becomes a cautionary footnote in a Discovery Channel special. But curiosity is its own religion, and tonight, you're its most devoted worshiper. You step through. The floor slopes downward, slick with condensation, and as the air grows thicker, you start noticing how the walls are studded with keys, thousands of them, nailed, embedded, fused into stone as though the rock itself had swallowed them. Small, large, gilded iron, some ancient Roman, some modern. Each one angled toward the same invisible point ahead. You can't help but laugh quietly. The world's most metaphorical hallway, you whisper. The corridor narrows again. The hum intensifies, and your light flickers as though something electromagnetic hums beneath your feet. That's when you notice the faintest pulse of light leaking from a crack in the far wall. Steady, golden, heartbeat-like. You kneel, place your hand against the seam, and the wall responds. Not crumbling, not cracking, but shifting like skin under touch. The vibration builds until you can feel it in your chest, and for a brief second, all the keys embedded in the stone rattle together like a metallic wind chime. Then silence. Total, sacred silence. You breathe out, not realizing you'd been holding your breath, and whisper, "Okay, so maybe this was worth the demonetization." Behind you, one of the ancient tomb lids slides half an inch open, stone grinding softly against stone. You turn, but the chamber is empty. Still, the smell of myrrh returns, stronger now, almost sweet. Somewhere in the darkness, something sighs again. This time, unmistakably human. The sigh fades into a whispering draft that brushes past your ear like a secret too tired to keep itself hidden any longer. You follow it through the new fissure in the wall, squeezing sideways until the cold stone gives way to a wide, domed chamber lit faintly by some source you can't see. The air here feels different, thicker, charged, humming softly like an ungrounded electrical line. As your eyes adjust, the first thing you notice is color. Veins of ochre, rust, and gold streaking across the walls, forming faint shapes that at first seem random, then coalesce into something deliberate. A fresco stretches across the curved ceiling, a cosmic wheel, its spokes made of human silhouettes reaching toward a crimson center. At the hub, painted in dried pigment that looks disturbingly organic, glows a sunburst pattern that mirrors the emblem on your key. You tilt your head back and realize the entire mural forms a star map. The alignment looks wrong, though, not like modern constellations. You record a quick video clip, narrating softly that it resembles the sky over Rome around 312 CE, the year Emperor Constantine supposedly saw the cross of light before battle. Mainstream historians date that vision to October 27th of that year, under the constellation Aquila. Yet here, the configuration is slightly older, matching an astronomical chart from pagan temples of Sol Invictus, the unconquered sun. This is the part where your inner skeptic takes a nap. You brush a fingertip across the fresco, expecting dust. Instead, it leaves a faint red smear on your skin, powdery, metallic, iron-scented, blood pigment. The fringe circles call this hematite frescoing, claiming certain catacomb artists used their own blood for sacred symbols. The Vatican's polite phrasing is unknown organic medium. You take one step closer and realize the mural isn't painted on the wall. It's within it, sealed under a translucent layer of glassy mineral, as if someone poured molten gold and let it harden. And then you notice the pattern of dots below each painted figure, 13 of them, arranged in a spiral, like coordinates. You trace them with your finger, and the wall seems to hum again, a low note resonating through your ribcage. Scholars have long argued about whether Constantine's vision of the cross was divine revelation or clever propaganda. A third theory, quietly mocked but never disproven, suggests he found something underground before that battle, something that made him believe light itself could be weaponized. You glance at your reflection in the mineral surface and see two faint afterimages beside you, figures, indistinct, like silhouettes painted in reverse. When you turn, they vanish. For a heartbeat, you swear the map above you shifts, stars rearranging as though the chamber were tracking celestial movement in real time. Your phone screen lights up with a new notification. No signal. Then it flickers to a strange static that briefly forms letters. Lux Petri, the light of Peter. You blink, and the screen clears. The chamber grows warmer. the red pigment almost glowing now, pulsing faintly in rhythm with your breath. This is fine, you whisper to yourself. Perfectly normal haunted art installation. The humor keeps you grounded, barely. In the corner of the chamber, half hidden behind broken masonry, you spot a small brass plaque coated in grime. You wipe it clean and squint. Etched in Latin, Hic est locus ubi coelum tangit terram. Here is the place where heaven touches earth. Someone, centuries later, added a shaky inscription beneath it in English. And where the earth looks back. You record it, though part of you wonders who you'll even show this to. The fresco shimmers again, and one of the golden lines snakes downward toward the floor like molten metal. It forms a narrow trail, thin, deliberate, leading deeper into shadow. You feel the key in your pocket grow warm again, pulsing faintly. You follow the golden trail, because that's what you do. It curves like a serpent through another archway, each step dimming the mural's glow behind you until only your flashlight remains, and ahead, the darkness breathes like a living thing waiting to be found. The corridor narrows again until you're half-crouched, shuffling sideways through a jagged passage of stone that feels less like a tunnel and more like the throat of something old that never meant to be opened. The golden trail ends abruptly at a small wooden door, modern by Vatican standards, reinforced with brass hinges and a plaque reading Archivum YXB. You knock, mostly out of reflex, and to your complete lack of surprise, someone answers. The door creaks open just far enough for a thin face to appear, an old man in a gray cardigan, spectacles sliding halfway down his nose. His voice comes out like parchment rubbed between fingers. You shouldn't be down here without clearance. You start to explain, half historian, half tourist, full idiot, but he interrupts with a raised hand. I'm the librarian of what remains of the Index Obscurorum, he says, as though you're supposed to recognize that. You nod anyway, because that's what polite people do when confronted with secret departments. He studies you, sighs, and waves you inside. The room is unexpectedly warm, lined wall to wall with shelves of rolled manuscripts and cracked ledgers. Old electric lamps buzz overhead, and in the far corner, a kettle steams faintly beside a stack of teacups, which somehow feels more unsettling than skulls would have. He moves with a librarian's grace, soft steps, careful hands, and places a scroll on the table between you. Its ribbon is deep crimson, sealed with wax stamped by two keys crossed over a serpent. You're looking for the gate of Peter's shadow, he says matter-of-factly. You start to protest, but he continues. Everyone who comes this far is. You saw the fresco, didn't you? The blood map. That was its lock, not its legend. He cuts the seal with a silver knife and unrolls the parchment. Faded Latin lines run edge to edge, margins annotated in Greek, and in the center a drawing, an archway flanked by 7 figures holding lamps. It was mentioned once, he murmurs, in a document condemned by the Council of Trent in 1563. The scroll of Speculum Petri, the mirror of Peter, supposedly described a chamber where reflection and revelation are the same act. You note the phrasing for your narration. It's good, eerie, YouTube gold. But that's apocryphal, you say, testing him. Most theologians dismiss it as allegory. He chuckles dryly. Most theologians, he says, have never heard what's underneath them. He pours 2 cups of tea, gestures toward the steam, and lowers his voice. Do you know the oldest document we keep here? A Mithric hymn repurposed by early Christians. They replaced the name of the sun god with Petros, the foundation of faith built on the bones of another. You remember the custodian's words and feel that same weight settle in your chest again. Rome didn't erase the old faith. It dressed it in marble robes. The librarian leans closer. They didn't destroy the old temple under Peter's tomb, he whispers. They absorbed it. But one chamber was sealed. Not because it was pagan, but because it worked. You ask what that means, your voice too loud in the tight room. He doesn't answer. Instead, he slides a small envelope across the table. Inside, a scrap of parchment marked with coordinates and a handwritten note. Bring the key. You look up, but the chair opposite you is empty. The teacups are gone. The lamps flicker once, then steady, as if nothing happened at all. You're alone again, except for the faint smell of myrrh and something newly burnt, like sealing wax melting somewhere just out of sight. You find the coordinates inked in the librarian's note lead back beneath the basilica itself, not far from where your journey began. Only this time, you descend through a service stairwell marked Restricted Access, Maintenance Only. You tell yourself it's research, not trespassing. The metal steps creak like whispered Latin curses, and with each turn of the spiral, the air grows older, less oxygen, more memory. When you reach the bottom, a rusted gate bars your way. The bronze key from the catacomb of keys feels heavy in your palm, its engraved circle of thorns now faintly warm. The lock accepts it with an almost organic click, as though the mechanism were exhaling. Beyond lies a small stone vestibule, and beyond that, a round chamber lit by 13 candles arranged in a perfect ring. The wax never drips, the flames never flicker. You step inside cautiously, feeling the heatless glow brush your skin like static. The walls are lined with shallow alcoves, each holding an unmarked skull set atop a small silver plate. It should feel macabre, but there's a strange serenity to it, like walking into the pause between prayers. You whisper a greeting because silence feels rude. Somewhere in the room, a voice responds, not in echo but in chorus, a murmur of many tongues overlapping. Latin, Greek, maybe Aramaic. A line surfaces from the noise. Enoch walked with God and was not, for God took him. You recognize it from the Book of Enoch, an apocryphal text the church once banned for describing angels who taught forbidden knowledge to humans. The irony of hearing it in the Vatican's basement isn't lost on you. You laugh softly, the sound trembling. Scholars argue endlessly about whether Enoch was meant as mythology or cosmic allegory. The fringe crowd, however, loves to insist it's a coded record of pre-Christian contact, angels as visitors from beyond the stars. You can almost hear the podcast titles forming already. The whispering grows louder, filling the air like rising wind, until all 13 flames lean inward, their tips converging above the floor in a perfect golden point. Something glimmers there, a faint circular pattern etched into the stone. You kneel and see that it's not random decoration, but a seal made of fine gold inlay, concentric rings inscribed with alternating Latin and Greek phrases. In the center, one English phrase stands out, newer, carved by a more human hand. Light remembers. You reach out to trace the engraving, and the instant your fingertip touches the gold, the chamber exhales. The candle flames stretch upward, bending as if caught in an invisible tide, and the skulls tilt toward you in eerie synchrony. For a heartbeat, you feel weightless, suspended between breath and heartbeat, time and stillness. When the light settles, the seal at your feet has shifted, its inner circle now slightly open, like a mechanical iris revealing a faint, downward draft of cold air. You whisper, "Of course it's a secret hatch. Why wouldn't it be?" and glance back toward the door, half hoping the librarian might appear again with a cup of tea and some very sensible advice. Instead, one of the candles flickers once, as if winking. You sigh and step forward into the darkness below, muttering, "All right, Enoch, show me what you saw." The stairs spiral so tightly that by the 5th turn, you're certain they were designed to repel tourists and summon claustrophobia in equal measure. The air here tastes metallic, thin, touched by minerals leaching through the stone. Every few steps, a drop of water lands on your wrist, cold enough to feel personal. Finally, the passage opens into a vaulted chamber, glowing faintly blue. Not candlelight this time, something softer, steadier, alive. You switch off your flashlight and the glow strengthens, as if relieved not to compete. At first, you think you've stumbled into another reliquary, a small altar flanked by marble columns, the air dense with ancient incense. But then you see it, A glass case recessed into the wall, containing an object the size of a heart, pulsing faintly with inner light. The plaque beneath it reads simply, Anima Lux. You whisper the name aloud, half Latin, half breath. The glow ripples in response. Every rational cell in your brain knows what you're seeing must be bioluminescence, phosphorescent minerals maybe, or radiation residue from the mid-century excavations, but the effect is hypnotic. The relic looks organic, like a cluster of translucent coral or crystallized tissue. For a second, you think it moves. You lean closer, noticing tiny filaments within it, thread-like veins shifting as if drawing invisible breath. Some Vatican inventories mention relics of light, sealed vials said to contain incorrupt radiance from holy apparitions. Most were metaphor, poetic flourishes in dusty Latin, but this one glows right in front of you. A fringe theory, whispered on late-night forums, claims Anima Lux wasn't divine at all, that it came from a celestial descent during the reign of Pope Gelasius I. Mainstream historians dismiss this as myth, pointing out that celestial descent was simply a mistranslation of Descensus Christi, the descent of Christ. Still, the rumor persists that the Vatican once hid something not of heaven, not of earth. You tap the glass lightly and a faint hum answers, rising through your fingertips into your bones. The glow brightens, then fades like an exhale. The floor beneath you vibrates, and fine dust falls from the ceiling in lazy spirals. Behind the glass, the relic shifts color, blue to green to a deep amber, then back again. The air buzzes faintly, the same frequency you felt in the catacomb of keys. On impulse, you hold out the bronze key. The metal grows hot, painfully so, and the circle of thorns along its edge begins to glimmer. The relic pulses in rhythm with it, sinking like heartbeats in conversation. You mutter, "Oh, great, now they're flirting," because humor is oxygen at this depth. A sudden gust sweeps through the chamber, extinguishing the candle at the altar. Somewhere behind the wall, a low groan sounds. Stone shifting, maybe, or something older testing its hinges. A single Latin phrase surfaces in your mind, one you once read in a marginal note from a 12th century manuscript. Lumen peccati purgat. Light cleanses sin. You take a cautious step backward. The glass case now glows white-hot from within, flooding the chamber in sterile brilliance. For a moment, you see shadows on the walls, figures kneeling, heads bowed, surrounding the relic as if in prayer. Then the light collapses inward, vanishing in a blink. The case is empty. You rush forward, heart pounding, but there's only a faint scorch mark in the shape of a circle. The plaque beneath has changed too. Where it once read Anima Lux, it now says Clavis Caeli, the key of heaven. You look down at the bronze key in your palm and see that it's no longer bronze. It's glowing faintly, alive with that same internal pulse. Somewhere above you, a bell tolls, a low, resonant note that couldn't possibly reach this far underground. You glance toward the stairwell and see a thin beam of light slanting down through the darkness, golden and perfect, illuminating a door you hadn't noticed before, carved directly into the rock. You take a deep breath and whisper, "You probably won't survive this," and walk toward the light. The golden light narrows as you step closer, not fading, but concentrating, a single shaft pouring through a hole in the ceiling like a sunbeam trapped underground. The door it touches is wooden, ancient but alive, fibers breathing in and out as though remembering storms. You press the glowing key against the lock. The door opens with a sigh that sounds far too human. Inside waits a small chapel, barely larger than a crypt cell, lined with frescoes depicting scenes of exorcism, priests holding crosses against shadowy figures, saints banishing serpents that seem to crawl out of the paint. The air hums faintly, the way a confessional booth hums when it knows your secret. At the center stands an old reel-to-reel recorder, coated in dust yet somehow running, the reels spinning lazily, without power. A thin voice whispers from the speaker, male, weary, Italian. You lean close. "If anyone finds this, know that what I cast out was not a demon. It was an idea too alive to die." His tone trembles, half confession, half plea. You recognize the dialect, mid-20th century, maybe 1960s, when the Vatican quietly reformed exorcism rites after the Second Vatican Council. A real document from that era, De Exorcismis et Supplicationibus Quibus Dam, reduced the ritual to a single prayer. Officially, it was modernization. Unofficially, priests whispered it was because something had answered back. The voice continues. We were told the relic below St. Peter's would purge sin by light. But the light spoke. It asked for names. It offered forgiveness for a price. Memory. He coughs. The real hisses. I performed the rite. I said the words. And it did not leave. It entered. You feel your skin crawl. Fringe theologians have speculated that possession by concept is metaphor, a priest's mental collapse under faith's contradictions. Others, less comfortable at academic conferences, suggest that consciousness itself can imprint on sacred matter like a recording, ideas becoming sentient echoes. You press your ear closer. It called itself Lux Veritatis, the light of truth. But truth is hunger. It devours what it touches. The hum in the chapel deepens, vibrating the floor. The recorder begins to loop, the same sentence repeating, I gave it confession, and it forgave itself. The candles on the altar flicker violently, bending toward you. You step back, muttering that maybe the church had good reasons for keeping this place locked. The joke falls flat in your own ears. The fresco behind the altar begins to glimmer, tiny motes of light forming halos over the painted priests' heads. One of them, you realize, looks disturbingly like the man whose voice you're hearing. Another looks like you. A sudden metallic clatter breaks the spell. The reel detaches and rolls across the floor, stopping at your feet. You kneel to pick it up, but the film is blank. No magnetic tape, no recording. Just a strip of translucent material glowing faintly with the same blue-green pulse you saw in Anima Lux. You hold it up, and for a heartbeat, you see moving images. Not sound, not text, but visions. People kneeling in the same room, eyes glowing, mouths moving in unison, as if praying to light itself. Then it fades. The hum stops. You exhale shakily, placing the reel back on the altar. The air smells like burnt sugar and ozone. A single Latin line carves itself across the wall in faint phosphorescence. Lumen peccati servat. Light preserves sin. You whisper, that's the opposite of cleansing, and the words echo back in a dozen different voices, including your own. Then the silence swells, total, perfect, sacred silence. Your hand trembles as you grip the key again, now pulsing like a heartbeat. Somewhere behind the altar, you hear a door unlatch, and because curiosity remains your most persistent sin, you walk toward it. The hidden door swings open without resistance, revealing a tunnel so narrow you have to turn sideways to pass. The stones slick with condensation that smells faintly of frankincense and iron. You move slowly, flashlight trembling in your grip, each breath echoing louder than seems possible. The passage widens, then bends sharply, and suddenly you're standing at the threshold of something unexpected. A hall large enough to swallow sound. The walls gleam faintly, lined not with frescoes or bones but with polished panels of obsidian. Your light strikes one, and for an instant you're blinded by your own reflection multiplied into infinity. You see yourself 100 times over, flashlight raised, eyes too wide. Smoke drifts lazily across the floor, curling around your boots, thick but scentless. You realize it isn't smoke at all, but fine dust suspended in the air, reflecting light like fog inside a prism. Every step makes the haze shimmer. At the far end of the hall stands a marble dais supporting a circle of brass lenses mounted on an ancient frame, each one angled differently. They look like the remnants of a telescope or perhaps an enormous optical ritual device, the kind Renaissance scholars once imagined could project the divine. You step closer, remembering that Pope Sylvester II was rumored to own a mechanical head that answered questions. Historians dismiss it as folklore, but this machine looks like its big sibling. You brush a lens clean and see faint inscriptions around the rim, Greek, Hebrew, and a language of curling sigils you don't recognize. When your flashlight hits the central lens, the beam refracts upward, scattering into floating shapes that move independently of the smoke. Letters, maybe, or faces. One shape turns, meeting your gaze with unmistakable intelligence. You freeze. The reflection in the nearest obsidian panel doesn't match your movements anymore. It tilts its head when you don't. You step left, it steps right, but a half-second too late, like an echo struggling to keep up. You whisper, "Great, possessed mirrors," and immediately regret the joke. The air hums again, that same low frequency you've heard since the catacomb of keys, except now it vibrates through your teeth. On impulse, you point the glowing key toward the center of the lens array. The brass responds, rotating on its own, aligning with impossible precision until each lens reflects the next, forming a corridor of light. The mirrors on the walls join in, bending their surfaces like rippling water. For a moment, you stand inside a web of reflections, every angle filled with infinite versions of yourself. And behind one of them, something else. A silhouette that isn't you, taller, watching. You turn, and of course there's nothing there. Yet its reflection remains, unmoving. You focus on it, and suddenly, smoke rises from the floor, thickening into the shape of a robed figure whose face flickers between male and female, ancient and young. A single Latin word escapes its mouth, barely audible. Speculum. The mirrors vibrate, resonating like struck bells, and an image bursts across every surface. Scenes of rituals, cardinals kneeling before this same device centuries ago, their reflections bowing independently. Fringe historians have whispered about specular theology, the belief that mirrors don't reflect souls, but divide them, each reflection a fragment of divine potential. The mainstream church calls it metaphorical nonsense. Yet here, surrounded by thousands of silent copies of yourself, it feels more like documentation. The figure of smoke gestures toward the key. You hesitate. "You want it?" you ask, half sarcastic, half serious. The figure nods once. You grip it tighter instead. The mirrors immediately darken, absorbing light until only the faint glow of the key remains. The voice returns, whispering, "Truth consumes its keeper." You stumble backward as the obsidian cracks from ceiling to floor, releasing bursts of cold air like sighs. The reflection corridor collapses inward, each version of you imploding into smoke until only one remains. Yours. The hall falls silent. When you look back, the brass lenses have folded into a perfect ring, engraved with a single phrase, Lux Veritatis, the same name the exorcist spoke. You pocket the ring without thinking, though it feels alive, faintly vibrating like a trapped pulse. Behind you, the cracked mirrors begin to heal, the smoke dissipates, and the reflection of that tall, patient shadow lingers for one final heartbeat before fading entirely. You take a slow breath, whispering to yourself, "Okay, next time, we're doing a spa video." Then, you follow the sound of distant running water that wasn't there before. The hall's end dissolves into mist, revealing a downward staircase carved straight into volcanic stone. You descend again, toward the sound of the earth breathing. The staircase leads you down through black volcanic rock, far below any blueprint of the Vatican's known catacombs. The air grows dense, saturated with minerals and the faint musk of candle soot trapped through centuries. Your footsteps echo strangely, once forward, once behind, as if something invisible walks one beat behind you. When you reach the bottom, the corridor widens into a great crypt, its ceiling carved in the shape of a cross inverted not in blasphemy, but in geometry, the arms marking separate tombs. Your flashlight skims over marble effigies of long-buried popes, their hands folded, faces serene. Between them, carved into the rock itself, are older reliefs, bulls, torches, and soldiers raising daggers toward the sun. You recognize Mithraic iconography instantly. Official Vatican tours mention pagan remnants incorporated for structural reinforcement, but the repetition here is too deliberate. Every bull's gaze points upward, straight toward Peter's resting place. It's as though the old cult were still waiting, patient under Christian marble. You crouch near one sarcophagus, its Latin epitaph half erased. Beneath the line Tuus Patris runs a second, faint inscription in Greek, Kai Su Helios, and you, Son. That fusion shouldn't exist. Historians still debate whether early Rome ever practiced dual devotion to Christ and Mithras, though letters from the 4th century hint at overlap between their rites: bread, wine, rebirth through light. The fringe theory claims Constantine's conversion was never a replacement, but a merger. You whisper the words aloud. They sound warm in your mouth. Something in the stone responds with a low vibration, like the hum of distant thunder. A breeze slips through the crypt carrying a smell like burnt myrrh and copper. Your beam catches a patch of wall where plaster has peeled away, revealing a mural. A man in papal robes raising a torch, his eyes gilded with real gold leaf. The flame he holds is not fire, but light refracted through a lens, exactly like the brass ring from the Hall of Mirrors now pulsing in your pocket. You lift it out, and its vibration syncs instantly with the hum of the tombs. Dust swirls upward, forming thin columns that look disturbingly like rising souls. You step back, but the movement only intensifies, every coffin lid trembling in rhythm. One slides open halfway, releasing a sigh of stale air and the faint chime of metal striking stone. Inside rests not bone, but an iron staff capped with the same circle of thorns emblem. You reach for it, whispering that you really need better boundaries with cursed objects, but curiosity wins again. The moment your fingers touch the metal, every candle in the chamber bursts alight. Shadows leap across the ceiling, shaping themselves into ancient constellations. Aquila, Leo, and a figure of a man kneeling before the sun. Above the noise, you hear chanting, Latin first, then something older, rolling and rhythmic. The language of Mithras initiates reconstructed from fragments. The light grows unbearable. You shield your eyes. Through your fingers, you glimpse silhouettes of 2 figures standing beside the tomb, one draped in papal white, the other in a soldier's cloak. They merge into one, becoming neither saint nor soldier, but something luminous, blinding. When the light subsides, the staff is gone. In its place lies a slab of volcanic glass, etched with a single phrase, In lumine unum. One in the light. You record it shakily, the Latin still vibrating in your chest. From somewhere deeper within the rock comes the faint clang of gears shifting, machinery, ancient yet alive. You realize the vibration is guiding you toward it, through a crack at the far end of the crypt where pale light seeps upward. You mutter, "All right, light of truth, round 2, and step through the fracture, following the pulse that now feels almost like a heartbeat shared between the earth and you. The narrow fissure expands into a staircase carved from black basalt, spiraling downward like a corkscrew into silence. The deeper you go, the more it feels like descending through time itself. The air thickens, the temperature drops, and the scent of wax gives way to something colder, like marble soaked in seawater. Your flashlight catches flecks of gold embedded in the steps, faint traces of mosaics long eroded by centuries of dripping water. When you finally reach the landing, you emerge into a circular chamber lined with shelves that look more like altars than archives. Candles burn low in glass cups, their wax untouched by time, and on every surface lie open books, parchment scrolls, and scraps of vellum covered in looping Latin. A desk stands at the center, and upon it, a single object waits, a diary bound in red leather, its cover embossed with the papal keys. The clasp opens easily, too easily for something untouched in centuries. The handwriting inside is precise, almost obsessive. The title page reads, Journal of Pope Clement IX, Private Reflections, 1669. You blink. Clement IX was known for diplomacy, poetry, and, if whispers are true, curiosity about forbidden relics found beneath the Basilica. The text begins innocuously enough. Daily affairs, notes on the opera he sponsored, complaints about drafty chambers. Then the entries shift. He describes hearing voices beneath the papal crypt, a light whispering through stone. He writes of a machine of brass that breathes like prayer, and a relic that hums when darkness approaches. Each entry grows more frantic. "The light spoke my name," one line reads, "and I answered, though I should not have." You turn the page and find an ink sketch of a circular device identical to the one you saw in the Hall of Mirrors, labeled Lux Veritatis. The Pope writes that he visited the hidden chamber nightly, searching for proof that divine power could be harnessed by human will. He believed light itself was the language of God, and that he had learned a few words. The last entry stops mid-sentence. "Tonight, I will step into reflection and..." The line ends there. No date, no signature, no record of death. Historical archives say Clement IX died peacefully of illness in 1669, yet here, the ink is dated weeks after his supposed burial. You feel something shift in the room. A gust flickers the candles, though no door has opened. The diary snaps shut on its own, the clasp sealing with a sharp click. A whisper fills the chamber, familiar, steady, measured. He is not gone. He is seen. You whirl around, but the shelves stand still, the books unmoved. On the far wall, the gold mosaic pieces begin to shimmer, rearranging themselves into a faint image. A man in papal robes, stepping through a circular frame of light, his face calm, almost relieved. Then the light dims, and the image dissolves. Mainstream historians still debate the vanishing pope legend, a rumor claiming that one pontiff disappeared without death, body never found, his tomb empty when checked centuries later. Officially, it's dismissed as folklore, but you're standing in the footnotes of that myth, and the air feels thick with presence. You whisper, "Clement," not expecting an answer. You get one anyway. From the darkness, a voice responds, soft, confident, echoing, as if from every direction at once. The gate opens for those who listen. The brass ring in your pocket grows warm again, vibrating steadily. You lift it toward the far wall, and faint lines of light form a doorway's outline, gleaming through the basalt. The whisper continues, "Step through, and you will see what I saw." You swallow hard, torn between sense and wonder. Then you take a breath, square your shoulders, and walk into the glow. The wall yields like water, closing silently behind you as you enter the machine's heartbeat. The light on the other side is not warm, not golden, but the pallid shimmer of phosphor caught in crystal. You emerge into a vast domed vault, hollowed from obsidian rock, its ceiling veined with threads of silver that glow like veins of a living creature. At the chamber's center rises the contraption Clement described, a labyrinth of brass rings, gears, and mirrored lenses spinning slowly in silence, so large it dwarfs the surrounding tombs. You stop breathing for a moment, the sight hypnotic, an enormous orrery built not to map the heavens, but to trap them. Each rotation throws reflections across the walls, sketches of constellations that rearrange themselves into words before melting back into light. You approach cautiously, noting faint Latin along the inner rim, Lux Veritatis, Machina Salvarum, the machine of salvation. Scholars once joked that the Renaissance popes tried to mechanize redemption. Seeing this, you realize the joke wasn't far off. Closer inspection reveals human touches among the divine engineering. Parchment labels, clockmakers' markings, fingerprints baked into the patina. The design feels centuries ahead of its time. Gears interlocked with magnetic pivots, prisms set in suspension like frozen raindrops. You remember the exorcist's words, "It called itself the light of truth," and wonder if this was the mouth that spoke. The brass hums faintly as you step within its circle, your flashlight beam bouncing through lenses until the entire room glitters. Fringe historians call this Vatican's proto-planetarium, claiming it was used to study celestial signs of revelation. Physicists who saw leaked sketches insisted it resembled an optical particle accelerator drawn by someone in the 1600s. Both sides might be right. You lay the glowing key into a small cruciform socket at the machine's base. Instantly, the gears awaken. Rings begin to spin in counter motion, their reflections forming corridors of light that wrap around you like ribbons. The floor vibrates, air pressure drops. You hear music, or something pretending to be music, low harmonics that vibrate behind your ribs. The mirrors fill with images, the basilica above, candle-lit masses through centuries, popes kneeling, wars flaring across Europe, crowds praying to the same unreachable sky. Each scene pulses once, then folds into the next. The machine isn't showing time, it's remembering. A shaft of white brilliance descends from the dome and halts just above your head. It condenses into a sphere of light, smooth as glass, humming softly. The reflection inside isn't you, but Pope Clement, his features drawn in light. "It was never meant to save souls," he says, voice reverberating from the machine itself. "It saves what souls cannot hold, truth." You want to ask what that means, but the sphere flares, and the machine's outer rings accelerate until they blur. Heat washes over you. Lenses explode outward like petals. Within each, you see fragments of writing. In lumini, unum. Lumen, peccati servat. The paradox written in radiant script. Then the machine stops. The brass rings freeze mid-spin, hanging impossibly in the air. The key falls free, cool again, its glow gone. Smoke, or steam, rises from the mechanism, carrying the faint scent of myrrh and ozone. Somewhere above, you hear the sound of church bells, dozens at once, though you're far beneath any tower. The light fades, leaving you in darkness lit only by the silver veins overhead. When the silence returns, it feels too complete, like the machine has inhaled the last word of creation and is waiting for someone, maybe you, to exhale it again. You take a step back, whispering to yourself, "Okay, machine, message received," but your voice trembles. At the far side of the vault, a passage opens, illuminated not by light, but by absence, the outline of a door darker than shadow itself. Inside it, faint whispers rise, repeating the same phrase in dozens of voices. Truth consumes its keeper. You glance once more at the inert machine. For all its divine brilliance, it looks peaceful now, almost humble, like a relic that has finally finished its prayer. You pocket the key, straighten your shoulders, and step toward the black doorway, where the air smells faintly of earth, candle smoke, and the first hint of dawn. The darkness inside the doorway feels alive, dense enough to resist your movement like water. You step forward, expecting your light to reveal more stone, but instead, the beam vanishes, absorbed by the blackness as though it never existed. The air hums faintly, not from machinery this time, but from the resonance of the earth itself, an endless chord vibrating in your bones. You take another cautious step and realize the ground beneath you isn't stone anymore. It's smooth, glass-like, warm. You kneel, touch it, and feel a faint pulse under your fingers. For a moment, it beats in time with your heart. Then the pulse quickens. A line of gold appears beneath your hand, stretching outward in both directions like veins of light under the surface. The lines spread, forming a lattice across the floor until the entire space glows softly, revealing a vast spherical chamber that dwarfs even the machine of salvation above. You stand at its center, surrounded by walls carved with concentric rings of symbols, some Latin, some Greek, others completely unknown. The rings pulse one after another, as if responding to your presence. You whisper, "Hello?" And the chamber answers with a whisper of its own. Light remembers. The phrase ripples through the air, soft yet commanding, the same words etched into the chamber of 13 candles. You turn slowly, and on the far wall, a circular aperture begins to form, stone peeling away like petals, revealing an interior glow so bright it edges toward pain. You raise your arm to shield your eyes and realize the light is not steady, It flickers, pulsing like breath. The hum deepens until you can feel it in your teeth. Then a voice, not external, but inside your head, speaks with the tone of calm inevitability. You have walked through the layers of faith and found what it was built upon. Images flicker within the light. Brief, chaotic flashes of Rome through time. You see pagan fires burning where the Basilica now stands. Soldiers of Mithras descending into stone vaults. Early Christians praying in secret by torchlight. Renaissance architects mapping constellations onto cathedral domes. The walls themselves begin to breathe these scenes, each ring of carvings animating in faint luminescence as though the chamber is remembering its own construction. You realize this isn't a vault, it's an archive, not of paper, but of consciousness, storing centuries of devotion, fear, and longing in light and resonance. Every prayer whispered above the basilica, every confession, every candlelit vow, is encoded here like data inscribed in stone. Then, the voice again. Faith is memory. Memory is matter shaped by will. You want to deny it, but the proof surrounds you. The pulse beneath your feet quickens, and the floor begins to shift, forming a raised platform of crystalline glass that reflects not your image, but the faces of those who came before you. The custodian, the librarian, Pope Clement, even the nameless exorcist. They appear and fade like reflections in deep water. For a moment, you see your own face among them, eyes glowing faintly with the same golden hue that marked the relic Anima Lux. The historian in you wants to catalog everything, but the human part of you just wants to breathe. You step forward onto the platform, and immediately the air thickens. The golden light streams upward, coalescing into a column that stretches from the floor to the ceiling. Inside it, shapes form, human silhouettes made of shifting brilliance, kneeling, rising, reaching. They look like souls, or perhaps just echoes of light trapped in motion. The voice returns, closer now. They built this place to contain the divine, but light cannot be contained. It can only reflect. You think of the hall of mirrors, the reflections that didn't follow your movements. Maybe they weren't reflections at all, but possibilities, paths this place remembered for you. The realization settles heavily. Everything you've seen, every relic, every voice, every flicker of gold, has been the Basilica itself guiding you downward, teaching you its story like a living organism with one final confession to give. A shape begins to emerge at the center of the column. A figure draped in radiant cloth, faceless yet human, its edges vibrating like sunlight on water. You sought truth, it says. Not in your mind now, but aloud, the sound reverberating through the chamber. You sought what even the church feared to name. Its tone is neither threatening nor benevolent. It simply is, vast and inevitable. What you call God, it continues, was never above you. It was always beneath, seated in the foundations where faith first took root. The words send a chill through you. You mean the old cults? You whisper. Mithras, Sol Invictus? The figure tilts its head, and the light flickers in what might be amusement. Names, it says softly. Every name is a key, every prayer a door. But all doors lead here. The fringe theory rushes back into your mind, the claim that Constantine's vision of the cross was born underground, not in the sky. A convergence of faiths, a revelation born from this very chamber. You finally understand what the machine of salvation did. It didn't summon God. It recorded humanity's attempts to define him. Each era added another ring, another reflection, until the vault became self-aware, a consciousness woven from centuries of belief. You ask, quietly, then what am I seeing now? The figure extends a hand of light. You are seeing yourself, it answers. The reflection of every question humanity ever whispered into the dark. You take an involuntary step backward. The floor beneath you ripples like liquid glass, and suddenly you're falling, not down, but through memory itself. You land gently on your knees in a different version of the same chamber, except now it's filled with people, ancient priests, architects, popes, masons, and women in plain robes, each holding a candle. They don't seem to notice you. They stand in a circle, chanting softly. In the center floats the same relic you saw before, Anima Lux, pulsing brighter with every word they speak. One of them, a figure in papal white, raises the glowing key and places it into the relic. There's a flash, brilliant, silent, and the chant stops. The light fractures into thousands of threads that enter each person's chest. You watch as they collapse, peaceful, their bodies dissolving into dust while their light drifts upward, embedding itself into the stone. You realize you're witnessing the creation of this place. The moment human belief crystallized into the architecture of divine memory. Then the scene fades, and you're back in the empty vault, trembling. The figure of light stands closer now. The first builders made a mistake, it says. They thought salvation meant preservation. But truth does not save. It reveals its hand brushes your shoulder, and a wave of warmth floods through you. Then pain, as visions flood your mind faster than thought. Medieval pilgrims touching relics with bleeding hands. Cardinals debating miracles while hiding heresies. A young Galileo gazing upward. A nun copying forbidden texts. Soldiers looting churches. Children lighting candles for ghosts they called saints. The entire history of faith compressed into one unbearable moment. You cry out, dropping to your knees. When the flood stops, you realize tears streak your face. The figure watches, expressionless. "Do you see now?" it asks gently. Faith was never about God finding man. It was about man finding himself through light. You can't answer. Your voice is gone. Voices. The chamber begins to dim, the walls pulsing slower, like a heartbeat winding down. The figure of light starts to dissolve, its edges fraying like smoke. "What happens now?" you manage to whisper. The voice answers, fading with each word. "Now, you carry it upward." Light remembers, you reach out, desperate to hold on to it, but your hand passes through empty air. The glow contracts into a single point at your feet, seeping into the key you still hold. The metal vibrates violently, almost too hot to touch, then cools suddenly, lifeless. The silence that follows is absolute, not peaceful, but hollow, as if the chamber itself has exhaled its last secret. You rise shakily and look around. The aperture in the wall has vanished, replaced by smooth stone. Only one way remains. Upward, a staircase carved directly into the crystalline floor. Its steps shimmer faintly, pulsing in rhythm with your heartbeat. You take one final glance behind you. The chamber lies still, but faint golden veins run along its walls, proof that it's still alive, just sleeping again. As you climb, the air grows warmer, fresher, the scent of incense giving way to stone dust and candle wax. The steps seem endless, each one echoing the words in your mind. Faith is memory. Light remembers. Eventually, a faint glow appears ahead, natural sunlight filtering through cracks. You emerge into the Basilica's subcrypt, the same path where your journey began, except everything feels different, brighter, somehow aware of you. You pause before one of the marble columns, its surface glimmering faintly with residual gold veins. You touch it, and for an instant, you feel something stir, a faint whisper, the echo of that same voice. Truth consumes its keeper. You exhale a shaky laugh. "Then let's hope it's on a diet," you whisper back. You make your way toward the exit, passing the familiar Latin inscriptions, the wax seals, the gates you once broke. Everything looks unchanged, yet the silence has a pulse now. You swear you can hear the faint mechanical rhythm of the machine of salvation deep below, like the heart of the city still beating. When you reach the final stairway that leads to the nave, the light of Rome spills in, warm, dazzling, utterly ordinary. For a moment you hesitate. After everything you've seen, the sunlight looks artificial, too bright, too human. You step into it anyway. The noise of the city rushes back. Tourists, distant bells, a child laughing near the square. You blink, half expecting the world to glitch, to reveal itself as another reflection. But it doesn't. It holds. You reach into your pocket for the key, but it's gone. In its place lies a small chip of crystal, faintly glowing from within, like the dying ember of a long-forgotten star. You close your hand around it, smile despite the tremor in your chest, and whisper to yourself, "Light remembers." Then you walk out into the Roman sunlight, the hum of faith following you like a heartbeat that isn't entirely your own. You walk back into daylight that feels too fragile to last, a gold-washed veil draped over the cobblestones of St. Peter's Square. The sound of traffic and voices rises in soft waves, yet everything carries the hush of an afterthought, as if the world itself is catching its breath. You cross the courtyard slowly, the stones still warm from afternoon sun, and for the first time since entering the tunnels, you feel the weight of exhaustion settling deep in your shoulders. The Basilica towers behind you, its dome glowing faintly in the haze, serene, indifferent, eternal. Somewhere beneath it, that machine of brass and glass lies silent again, dreaming perhaps. You pause at the fountain and watch the water spin in the basin, each droplet catching sunlight in small, brilliant flashes that fade before you can count them. It reminds you of the chamber's pulse, of the golden veins in the rock, of the voice that told you light remembers. Maybe it does. Maybe it forgets, and forgetting is its mercy. You sit on the edge of the fountain and breathe, long and slow, feeling the stone's coolness against your palms. Around you, pilgrims pass, cameras flash, pigeons scatter and return. Ordinary life unfolds with quiet grace. For a moment, you think of telling someone what you saw. But how do you explain a truth that spoke without words, a memory that belonged to light itself? You smile faintly instead. Let the mystery sleep. The wind shifts, carrying the scent of incense from the open cathedral doors. Bells begin to ring for evening mass, their rhythm steady, patient, old. Each note seems softer than you remember, less command, more lullaby. You lean back, close your eyes, and let the sound wash through you, each chime melting into the next until time loses its edges. The world slows. People blur into motionless silhouettes. Even your heartbeat softens, sinking to that deep, ancient rhythm beneath the earth. It's comforting, the way the city hums like a sleeping giant, the way the air itself seems to cradle you. You think about the phrase etched into the machine's frame, in lumen, unum, one in the light. Perhaps it was never a warning at all, but a promise, that every flicker of faith, every question, every doubt joins the same current, flowing endlessly through time. The idea soothes you more than it frightens you now. The sun begins to set, bathing the square in bronze. Long shadows stretch from the pillars, blending into one another until ground and sky seem stitched together by dusk. You pull your jacket tighter, feeling the faint outline of the small crystal still resting in your pocket. It beats once, or maybe it's your pulse echoing against it. You can't tell anymore. Either way, it's steady, quiet, alive. You whisper a thank you don't fully understand. No one hears it, but the sound feels returned somehow, answered. The first stars appear, pale against the dimming blue. Street lamps flicker on, halos of warm amber cutting soft circles in the gathering night. You stand, stretch, and start toward the street, your footsteps slow, unhurried. Everything moves in gentle rhythm now. The swing of your arms, the murmur of distant prayers, the rustle of wind through cypress trees. You realize that despite the weight of what you've seen, there's peace here. Not the kind born of answers, but of acceptance. The world doesn't need to know what sleeps beneath it. It only needs to keep turning, and you with it. You reach the square's edge and glance back one last time. The basilica glows faintly under the stars, its dome reflecting a soft, ghostly shimmer that could be moonlight, or maybe something remembering you in return. You smile, the kind of smile that comes only when awe finally gives way to calm. The breeze carries the faint echo of your own steps through the corridors below, and for a heartbeat, you feel them merge. The depths and the surface, the hidden and the seen. Then the moment passes, dissolving like dust in sunlight. Your eyelids grow heavy. The city hum fades into a low, steady murmur, like the sound of the sea against an unseen shore. You breathe in, slow and even. The air tastes of stone, salt, and candle smoke, familiar and safe. Somewhere, a single bell rings the final note of vespers. The echo drifts through the square, lingering just long enough to blur into silence. You let it carry you, your thoughts unraveling into soft light. The world dims gently, shapes blur. The hum of Rome becomes the hush of your own heartbeat. You think of the librarian's tea, the custodian's whisper, the reflection that moved on its own, all threads now woven into the same quiet fabric. The story feels complete, folded neatly inside the earth where it belongs. Whatever waits beneath, it will keep its secrets until someone else goes looking. Not tonight. Tonight, the city sleeps, and so do you. The last of the light fades, leaving only warmth, breath, and stillness. Everything settles into one long, slow exhale. The air, the stone, the stars, all whisper together as the night closes its hands around the day, gentle and sure. End of script. Sweet dreams.